let's say if you're sitting down to watch a movie.
Sitting down and watch a movie. Okay. Maybe like I haven't watched a movie in a while.
You're in business class all the time.
Yeah, I never watched the in-flight entertainment.
That's too
Funny.
funny. Welcome to Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories, the podcast that shines a light on ordinary people and their extraordinary stories. From small towns to big cities, we're sharing the real, raw, and inspiring moments that connect us all. Because every voice matters, every story counts. This is Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories. Welcome back, Joes. It's another episode of Ordinary Joe's Extraordinary Stories. I'm your host, James Graves Brown, and I'm back with another special guest. This gentleman is kind enough to take the time to come and tell you a little bit about his story, and I am really grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak to this man. If you don't know, this is Gabriel Leigh. Gabriel, thank you so much for joining the podcast this morning and giving me the time. I appreciate you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So if you don't know, Gabriel is part of the Flight Radar 24 team, if I'm correct. I
Yeah.
would I would venture to say the main part of the team. You're the face of the team for sure. This guy has to have the coolest job on the planet. So, but before we get into that, please tell me a little bit about your background. Where you born? Where you from? And what got you into aviation?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a kind of a international, complicated background from New York City originally. But my parents moved out of there when I was very young. We went to Japan, spent quite a bit of time there as a young kid. Was in back on the East Coast, U.S. for a while, also in England, and then ended up back in New York for university. And since then, kind of jumping around the world as well.
Oh wow,
Just
okay.
finding myself in different places. Also on the West Coast for a while. I did a graduate degree in journalism on the West Coast.
Oh wow.
But really, what got me into aviation was in high school. I was going to boarding school, and I made friends with this guy who was like actually really into airplanes. And at the time, I was like flying a lot, but not super av geek at that point. But he kind of indoctrinated me, showed me like how fun it was to pay attention to these details. We were often on the same flights going back to Europe from school in the U.S. And it was like from there on, we still talk about airplanes every day over WhatsApp. But it grew into this much bigger thing.
That is really cool. So if anybody of listeners or viewers don't know, Flight Radar 24 is a airplane tracking app. You can see real time airplanes as they're flying all over the world, and you can see all the little stats and details. But Gabriel's part of that is more. He makes videos for YouTube where he does things that you'll never get to do, and I've actually experienced one instance, and I'd like to tell you about that. But he gets to fly in cockpits on crazy routes, and he gets to experience business classes of all these different airlines, and gets to give reviews for all of the airlines around the world, and it's a really cool. It's it's very adventurous and living vicariously through you to watch your videos. I enjoy them. Every single time one comes out, it's my favorite thing to watch. How did you get started with Flight Radar, and how did you get into the cool job that you have?
Yeah, I mean, just by chance, really. I mean, I sort of wish I had gotten into the YouTube world a bit earlier, actually. I sort of didn't really put much thought into it in the early years. I studied filmmaking
Oh
and ended up
wow.
sort of being more sort of interested then in kind of nonfiction documentary. I did a journalism master's, and then, I was kind of working out in web video a little bit after that, and
Oh
also
man.
some traditional journalism, covering a lot of transport. But it wasn't until I saw, 5 or 6 years ago, it was actually just as the pandemic was kicking off, funny enough, that Flight Radar was looking for someone to do content generally, but they were looking more for a blog writer mostly, and sort of
Oh wow.
occasional sort of dealing with media requests and maybe doing some stuff on Twitter, which was like the biggest platform at that time, still is. But I started doing stuff for them originally, some blogs, and then I said like, hey, how about I do a video or two? You have this YouTube channel. They had about 10,000 subscribers on there at that time. They just had a couple of product demo videos. I said, like, you have this YouTube channel. Like, what if we try and like, I think I could use my skills better, kind of taking over this channel
Yeah,
and seeing
sure.
what I could do. And it kind of kicked off where I took a flight with this funny little airline in Sweden called Amapola. They've since renamed themselves. I think they're Populair now. They're this airline that flies Fokker 50s in Sweden,
Oh,
which is a
wow.
very rare airplane to find anywhere. And they fly them to these little, they fly basically essential air service routes where this is subsidized routes to small towns mostly. And they have a nice little business model doing that. And I took a flight on one of those. So I thought it'd be fun. I didn't do anything I didn't even think there'd be a chance to sit on the jump seat. But I got in touch with them saying like, listen, I'm going to do a video. Maybe I could talk to the pilots for a minute. And when I got there, the pilots were like, hey, do you want to sit up here?
That's
And so
cool.
then so was born like the first flight deck video, which, I sort of hadn't even thought that this could be a possibility before that. And it kind of steamrolled from there, like where I mean, I do other types of videos, but that's obviously the hit video, right? And then for
Yeah,
me also, at like the young boy in me is like thrilled every time this is possible to get invited up there and see all that happening. And finding that like there are a certain number of airlines, some airlines and some regions they just won't even consider it, but there are enough that will consider it. They take the right precautions, they look into it and all that, to make sure everything is as it should be, safe, et cetera, as they should. But then it's possible to show this side of things, and it's fascinating for me, and I'm sure it's fascinating for a lot of people who wouldn't normally get to see this side of things. And I found also that like the airlines, they enjoy it because, and the pilots too. A lot of pilots have said to me like, listen, my family and friends, they know what I do, but they don't really know what I do. But now I can show them this video, and they see like what my overnight flight is actually, what it's like, what it feels like, what happens. So that's really nice. And yeah, that really became the thing with the YouTube. I can't always do those. Those take a lot of work to put together,
sure.
to get the access mostly. But and then just sort of diversified from there. Like, it's sort of anything in the aviation world, as long as it's sort of behind the scenes, pretty
Yeah.
much will cover. And I just sort of look for things that are fun for me to see, and it's just goes like that. So yeah, Flight Radar became this thing, and I've just been doing, since then, I don't know, hundreds of videos.
Yeah.
It's a very fortunate position to be in. Yeah.
How long have you worked for Flight Radar doing these videos?
I mean, I think I took over the YouTube channel probably 5 years ago.
Oh,
So
that's it.
yeah.
I must have been watching you from the beginning then. Um, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience. So prior to 2018, I had pretty much zero interest in airplanes. I had done a couple years in college to go for avionics and whatnot, but it didn't work out. It wasn't my thing. I left because primarily because I had no interest in aviation or airplanes. It wasn't my thing. Um,
Hmm.
2018, we had a high-speed rejected takeoff, my wife and I, and she likes to joke that when that happened, my brain hit the front of my skull and it changed. Something happened inside. But from that moment on, I was just insanely curious what happened on that flight, why we rejected the takeoff. And so then I did this deep dive into airplane accidents and incidents spanning history and had to
Hmm.
learn everything there was to know about airplanes. Um, and I don't know, it had the opposite effect on me where I'm no longer afraid of planes. I love being on an airplane. It's like my favorite thing ever now. And what I was talking about that I had a little experience like what you do is my first international flight. We flew to Cairo. We went to Egypt to go, do the tourism thing for a few days. We flew Air France, and of course we saved up for business class because I wanted to experience that on the jumbos. So we flew a 777 from LAX to Charles de Gaulle, and then from Charles de Gaulle to Cairo was on a A350. Now this was a 2-year old A350 900, and as we were flying over Athens, Greece, the captain invited my wife and myself into the cockpit, like in flight, and I was like it was like a dream come true. So like I had three main goals in life at that point, and it was to get on an A380, to get on a 747, and to get into a cockpit during flight, and that happened first. And I was like, this is so insane. I couldn't believe that it was real. And maybe you can answer this for me, but the captain during that flight was telling me that there are 5 countries that allow that throughout the world at the captain's discretion to have guests in the cockpit. And he listed them for me, but I was so geeked out that I don't remember anything he said other than like I remember him doing that with his hand and counting them down. So
5 countries only that allow it?
yeah, that's what
No,
he said.
I think he's incorrect. I mean, that tends to be an airline policy. There will be sort of like sometimes, national level regulations that supersede whatever an airline might want to do. For example, in the US, that's never going to happen. Even if American Airlines wanted to allow that, the FAA it's just absolutely impossible.
Right.
And there are certain countries like that where it's just a hard no. But actually, the majority of countries, there's no specific regulation about this.
Wow.
So you'll run up against that with the UK, the US, to some extent Canada. They have a little bit, like I have been in a cockpit in Canada, but it took a bit of workaround.
Sure.
But in India is another famously like restrictive one. You'll never, not even on the ground, basically. Um,
No kidding.
uh, Almost, yeah. Like they're super, super conservative and restrictive. But most
Wow.
countries do not have this kind of blanket regulation, so it's going to be airline specific. And at least in Europe, Europe is a very open place for the most part regarding that. In Europe, most airlines have some kind of a policy where the captain, I mean, even it's even possible if the captain says to invite someone into the flight deck going into the US. Like I've seen that happen.
No
It's
kidding.
just yeah, it's just potentially you get a lot of blowback and it's requires paperwork and it can be challenging to deal with. So some airlines will say we just don't do that, but it
Sure.
is technically possible. Like
Wow.
captain's discretion kind of goes no matter what. Like the captain is the boss in a big way, right? But they can't do anything they want. But I've seen it happen even into the U.S. Not to me, but yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk airlines for a minute. What is your favorite airline? I know that you said on previous videos, I think it was SAS or Scandinavian was your favorite. Because nostalgia was that you, or am I confusing that with somebody else?
That's not me. SAS is definitely not my favorite, and I love to trash talk SAS these days. I mean,
Okay.
there are good things about SAS, but I find them very disappointing and not living up to their potential. And they also ignore Stockholm, which is where I'm based, in favor of Copenhagen. So I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. I mean, we
Uh,
basically, from SAS, we get one nonstop to New York in terms of long haul, and that's it. Everything else has to go through Copenhagen. So they're gonna feel my not wrath, but
disdain.
they're going to feel my judgment in the content. I do like some things about them though, and their 80-year livery A330 is absolutely gorgeous. They did a really good job with that. Finally, some sort of personality from SAS. Nice to see. Um, I have a very nostalgic thing that probably overestimates the quality of the airline when it comes to British Airways, actually.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the thing where like I feel great on any British Airways flight, even though they're kind of hit or miss in terms of service and offering.
No
I think
kidding.
that they're also pretty good. But if you want, I mean, I feel a bit predictable saying it, but the best airline in the world for me is still Qatar Airways. I mean,
Oh,
in terms
wow.
of the service you get at that, especially sort of you're talking about business class and the level of service and personalization and personal attention and sort of you're made to feel special in this way that you just don't find outside of usually you might hope to find that in first class, right?
Right.
But for business class, yeah, and I actually haven't embarrassingly have never flown economy on Qatar Airways, but I've heard that's also pretty good. So,
That's definitely a flex. That is not something to be embarrassed about. Um,
I don't know.
so my wife and I have a policy that if we're flying 6 hours or more anywhere, it's going to be business class. Obviously not in the US because
Yeah,
I will say personally from what I've experienced, the level of service you get on a US airline is dwarfed significantly by anybody outside the US. Just from what I've experienced. Like American is at the bottom of my list. I've had such terrible experiences on American Airlines, and Delta is probably the top of the list. And I would say United, I'm very indifferent to because I've had good and bad with them. Now we flew recently to Japan on the Polaris to Narita out of LAX, and it was fine. It was good. The good, nice people, decent service, but nothing over the top. We flew to when we went to Athens in 2025. We did Lufthansa, and that was where I knocked the other two things off my bucket list. We got on the A380 business class on the upper deck, and then we did on the way back from Frankfurt, we did the 747 upper deck business,
nice.
and the service on those jets was just astronomically better. So Air France and Lufthansa both have a really special place in my heart, not only because the first two international airlines I flew, but the most amazing experiences on those planes.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts regarding those two? As far as rankings, I would say.
Lufthansa, I also have a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because we've been trying to do cockpit on the 747 for like the last 4 years, and they keep kind of blocking it, and I'm very upset about it because it's the number one. I get a DM every day at least asking when you're going to do 747 cockpit. Everybody wants it. It would be a 5 million view video. Lufthansa would benefit greatly from it, and they just don't make it happen, and it's so frustrating. Actually, one of the first videos I did with a major airline in the cockpit was Lufthansa A350, and that really opened the door to a lot more for me, and it was a really great. I think it worked out really well for everyone, and so
Sure.
it's a little bit sad that we haven't been able to put together that kind of like continuing good partnership with them. We also did Madeira with them on the 320. That was really cool. But since then, it's been a bit like disappointing. So, I mean, look, they have these amazing aircraft, these classic aircraft, and the A340-600 as well. That's about to be retired. I'm trying to get on it before they retire it.
Oh, yes,
Um,
please.
yeah, but yeah. So I mean, look, I like Lufthansa is great for that. I think for in terms of service, like I don't go into it expecting to be blown away, but I think it'll be usually quite decent. Like
Oh,
there's
wow.
no, it's kind of it's mid tier for me.
Okay.
The aircraft is neutral, and that makes it nice. Frankfurt is a terrible place to connect. Munich is fine. I don't go out of my way to fly them, but I won't avoid them either usually. Air France, I think, has gotten really, really good over the last few years. They've really made some nice investments. Their aircraft are amazing. They tend to have really good service these days. They fly the A220 here to Stockholm almost exclusively, and I'm really happy with that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm really into Air France lately. And they've been nice to work with too. We're trying to put together actually, hopefully, another project with them this year, maybe a delivery flight from
Oh,
Canada if
awesome.
we can. And I would say about the U.S. airlines, I think that with them, you just can't go in expecting to be pampered or to have good service, and then it's fine. Like I think their hard product, which is pretty much the more important thing, like a Polaris seat and the basics of the service, I'm super happy to take. I think it's very
Sure.
comfortable, very nice. Same with American, same with Delta. I mean, yeah, I think I agree. Like Delta, you have the biggest chance of having a nice time, like an actual good service. American, United, you never know. But like as long as they're not outright hostile, which can happen, that's the problem. You never know when that's going to be the case. But as long as they're not outright hostile, I consider that a win, and I have a pretty good flight.
Absolutely.
So
I would
yeah.
definitely agree with that. I told you in our conversation that we're headed to Italy now in August, and fortunate for us, we booked United Polaris again out of Denver to Rome, and we did that before Scott Kirby's announcement of the basic business. Give me your thoughts
Mhm.
on that.
I mean, this whole thing with basic, the whole world of sort of these new fares that are called basic and are supposedly like a way to trim away the things you don't want so you can pay a lower fare, which actually is a load of nonsense. Like it's just a way to raise the sort of the floor of what you're paying, and then you're getting less for it. I think it's disingenuous in that sense, and it's annoying. And the different ways that different airlines execute basic whatever is annoying to deal with too for a passenger, especially like for me, it's confusing, and I'm paying close attention to all this stuff. For the average passenger, they're just bewildered by like, okay, can I take a bag? Can I get a carry? Like, do I get lounge X? Who knows? What has been stripped away, and is it from one airline to the other? They have no idea what's going on. I find that to be the case within Europe too now, where you have basic some of the basic fares or light fares. You don't get the cabin bag. Some you do. It's just I think it just creates a confusing situation for passengers to
Wow.
reduce the quality of travel and that ends up confusing them. So like, look, if I really saw that like, oh, fares have come down now because they've debundled the offering in business, then I'd say, okay, maybe that's cool. Maybe you don't need a check bag. I often don't, but it's not true. It doesn't happen like that. It's just that the sort of base fare that you paid before now gets you less. So
Right. Yeah, that was our that was my end of the line with United. I said after this we're not I'm not paying a business class flight premium for getting less product. That's not what we fly business class for. Like I enjoy the entire service. I enjoy that I don't have to worry about my bags, and I love checking out the lounges. Like Narita was one of the most amazing lounges I've ever been in. We sat there for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours before our flight. I was plane spotting the runway right in front of the window, and it was like such a good time. I loved it as
yeah.
an app geek anyway. Um, Tell me about some of your favorite lounges around the world.
Favorite lounges. I mean, they're probably the obvious ones. I really like, of course, probably my favorite still is the Cathay Lounge in Hong Kong, the Pier. The first class part of the pier is so nice. Just that's what I want from a lounge. I don't want like so it's interesting there because for example, like the wing, you have big open space, kind of open to the terminal, right? So it's kind of expansive. I
Okay.
love when a lounge is sort of it feels like a lounge. It feels like cozy, kind of, it's the sound is muted. You have good quality furnishings, you have nice stuff to eat and drink. And that I think they achieve that, like my sort of ideal of a lounge really nicely there. Dine on demand kind of thing. Also,
Yeah.
some nice spaces to sort of feel secluded and sort of, not kind of exposed to the elements, and you can sort of do your thing, get your things done. I really like that. I really enjoy the Japan Airlines lounges in Haneda, just for the like mostly because I'm a total sucker for Japanese food, and
100%.
I mean, who isn't, right? Um,
Right.
but just yeah, the way they present that thing, also really nice views. What else? I mean, actually, the new Garden Side Lounge in Doha in Hamad International at the Qatar Airways Lounge, I quite like that. Even though it's open to like a jungle below you, so that's a really
Oh,
cool
that's
feeling.
cool.
Have atrium glass ceiling. That's a nice twist on that other approach. And of course, because it's Qatar, like amazing service. Um, and like that's a place that's nice to have a longer layover so you can sort of try out
Oh,
a few of the different
absolutely.
things to eat and drink and all that. I don't know, there's a lot of good lounges these days. But yeah, I mean, Asia, Middle East, they kind of stand out, right? The new one in Abu Dhabi is nice. I really love the premium travel experience at the new Abu Dhabi airport overall because it's so efficient from sort of the check-in area through the security. You're sort of you have to do very, very little to get airside, and that's the best for me. That's sort of at sort of long day of whatever you had to do there, and you need to fly out that night. You just don't want to deal with massive airport, potential confusion, crowds, whatever, long walking. Abu Dhabi nails that, where I think like Dubai does not, for example, where
Oh,
you
wow.
just you have like minimal steps from check-in to lounge, and then the lounge is really nice too. I mean, it's not my favorite lounge in the world, but there's plenty of space, so you find places to sit, and it's just an overall efficient, very premium feeling sort of uh, path from start to finish basically. And then you can board if you're flying the A380, you can board straight from the lounge. That's extra bonus.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I clearly have a lot of flying to do still and discovery to have. I haven't been to any of the Middle East lounges. I'm still at the beginning of my whole flight career. Um,
Mm.
I've done that Lufthansa flight. I've done the Air France, and then we flew to Japan, and now Italy will be the fourth time I've left the country. And so I still have a lot of world to discover and
Okay, nice.
a lot of business class flying to do. And I definitely want to get onto the Middle East Airlines. I'm dying for that, but I also know it's going to cost my pocketbook a nice chunk. So I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah,
um,
especially for starting in the US. Yeah, we get really good fares on them sometimes out of the Nordics. It's really good to be based here for that.
oh, that's cool.
But yeah, in the US for sure. Yeah.
So real quick, tell me about the 100-year livery Lufthansa 747 delivery that you did, that video. How was that? Because just the footage was amazing.
Yeah, that was so much fun. I mean, just to be able to watch a 747 from that vantage point, sort of between the runways, super special. And I happen to think that that livery, as much as I might give Lufthansa hell for various things, I think they could do better. Like that Centennial livery is so good, and especially on the 747, it's just stunning. So to get to be there for that moment, the excitement around it, being in that position to watch the 74 and have it do the low pass first. I mean, like what as an head geek, you can't really ask for more than that. So yeah, that was amazing.
100%. Like I was taking screenshots on my phone on that video. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Um, yeah, I agree 100%. I'm yet to see a livery that's as good challenging that one because just the way that what is the bird for
The
Lufthansa?
crane.
A crane. So yeah, the way the crane's body turns into the wings of the plane, that's
Yeah.
that's genius. They did such a good job, and the color scheme is phenomenal. It just stands out, and I love
Yeah.
uh, I love watching the live feeds for Flight Radar 24, and then I have a couple other ones. There's a LAX spotters, but I love watching the A380 and the 747 fly into LA because that's, the closest that I'm going to get to those planes probably for a while. I do
Yeah.
plan on booking them at some point in the future, if possible, but the I don't know how you guys have your schedule. How does it work when you want to be on a specific jet, like a specific tail number? How does your booking work? Do you just know their schedule in advance, or because I can't figure that out?
It's difficult and it can change. So that's never a for sure kind of thing. But in that case, usually I'd be working with the airline to figure it out, and they
Oh,
can say where it's scheduled for the next couple of weeks usually, and then after that, yeah, the changes are always possible. But that's also true of everything that I do. Like at any time, the whole thing could fall apart because of whatever operational problem or change or who knows what, right?
sure.
So there's that uncertainty element to it, but that's also part of the fun. And yeah, chasing around an airplane like that and managing to catch it is quite fun too. Yeah.
Absolutely. For our trip to Greece, I was trying to figure out logistics of getting my buddy who lives in Denver on the ground to film our takeoff from the ground while I filmed it from inside the jet. And we managed to make it happen, but like trying to figure out the tail numbers because every day it was a different A380 and
Yeah.
they were rotating through five or six different A380s and I was like, I don't know what tail number we're going to be on and it all actually didn't happen until like we were taxiing away from the gate and I knew which direction we were going that I was able to tell him, hey, go to the end of this runway and film it. And we got it. It's not like super spectacular, but it's really cool to see both vantage points from the same flight.
We had that when we did the last Condor 757 flight coming back into Frankfurt. We had someone at the airport with the spotters who were trying to figure out which runway it was going to land on. You know how they have three runways parallel there,
Oh, that's
where
cool.
where it could have been, right? So you have left, right, and center. There's an
Right.
extra complication at Frankfurt, and nobody could tell us which one it was going to end up on, and it was sort of last minute. And actually, like, yeah, we chose the wrong one. So I was on board, so that was fun. But like the people on the ground, like they missed it, and that's just how it goes. Like ATC is probably not going to accommodate you in that situation.
I don't think they have time to be fair. I love Condor's liveries. I live here in New Mexico, and we have really clear skies most of the year. So I always am looking towards the sky anytime I hear a jet, and you can tell a Condor jet from the ground, even at 38, 40,000 feet, you could see the stripes, and I just love that livery. And when we were at Frankfurt taxiing out to head back, I took a picture of just a whole bunch of Condor planes lined up with like a Lufthansa. I think there was a Iberia in there, and you could just see all the really colorful tails. It's such a cool picture. I'll send it to you so you can see it. It's really cool. I'm really proud of that one. And then in the background you have like an A340, and there's a couple 747s and maybe a couple A320s. It's just really really cool pictures. So I do love Frankfurt for that. But yeah, Condor is their liveries are phenomenal too. It's such a weird thing to look at. You're just like, that's a striped airplane. That's bizarre, but like in terms of being a plane spotter, it's very helpful, and I love it.
I think from a branding and marketing standpoint, it's genius, absolute genius. That even
Absolutely.
even though sort of 20% of people seem to hate it, in the comments they usually show up saying it's the worst thing I've ever seen. It like that almost is a good thing. Like you get people passionate about it either way, and it's immediately recognizable. You can't mistake it. It's like, yeah, I think that livery is part of what helped change them from like an airline that nobody really would recognize in any like what is Condor, to something that everybody that has some vague notion of the industry is like they know exactly what that is.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I know I want to be respectful of your time, and I know we have limited time today, and so this could be a short episode, guys. But I'm going to try and get Gabriel back on here another time so we can chat a little bit more about airplanes and geek out a little bit. But before we get out of here, just give me a 5 year plan. What you're looking forward to for the next 5 years, as far
The
as
next
in terms
five
of your
years.
career, your life, things like that.
I mean, I have a few things that I want to get done in terms of like bucket list items, like fly on the Ilyushin IL-76, things like that, I want to get to the North Pole as well and the South Pole. Did Antarctica, but like didn't get to the pole, right? So, I mean,
That's
so
cool.
I want like have these sort of like goals that I would hope to accomplish in those next 5 years. But actually, I don't know, it's kind of it's just it's fun to do this and to see, what new adventures I can come up with for now. And like to be honest, I don't, I don't really have a vision of what might substantially change over the next 5 years. I
Fair
hope
enough.
I actually one thing I would really hope that I've done by then is to get my own PPL because the
Oh
fact that
wow.
I'm not licensed to fly myself has become sort of like I get the question every time because I have this weird level of knowledge for because I've been around so much of it. It's
Sure.
like it's this strange thing between like kind of amateur and also knowing some details of like the professional life of flying larger aircraft. So it's a weird mix, like sort of in between place to be. And I would like to at
Wow.
least have some kind of license to fly to like sort of back it up,
Oh,
if
that's
that makes sense.
fantastic. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So my goal for the next 5 years is to get one of those damn keychains. I'm gonna meet up with you someday and get one of your keychains, man. I've been dying for one of those. I need to
Yeah.
knock that off my bucket list too. But if you ever see Gabe out in the wild, approach him because he's got the coolest keychains that you can only get from one place, and that's from him.
Yep,
uh,
that's right.
uh,
Or a couple of my colleagues, but yes, mostly me.
That's awesome. Okay, so last thing before we get out of here, do me a favor and tell my viewers and listeners where they can find you and where where they can learn more about airplanes and cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so you'll find my videos on the Flight Radar 24 YouTube channel. I also have my own channel. You can find me under Gabe Lee on there or Gabriel Lee. And then I post a lot to Instagram as well at Gabe Lee on there. Those are the main places. And you can also send me a message on Instagram. I try to answer everybody. So,
That's really cool. That's how I got a hold of you, and I appreciate you for taking the time again to not only answer me back, but give me the time on here. This is really cool to. It's like talking to your favorite celebrity. It's really cool. Um, One last thing, Gabriel. Thank you again for doing this. And everybody out there, do like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Not only the podcast, share it with your friends, but go to Gabriel's and check his stuff out if you want to see like the coolest things that you'll never get to experience firsthand. All right, Gabe. Well, thank you again, and it was really nice talking to you and meeting you in person. And if you're up for it, maybe sometime in the future we can get another half of this going. And
cool.
thank you again so much, and you have a great day. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
All right, bye bye.
Yeah.
If somebody
Mm.
just said, you said, I'm thirsty and I'm hungry, and somebody said, what do you want? What's the anything in the world? What do you want? What's your go-to snack and go-to drink? It could
Yeah,
be
that's actually
alcoholic or not, doesn't matter, just whatever you would pick, just right off the bat.
it's kind of hard to answer, actually. What are you
That's so
thinking of?
funny.
Yeah.
I've asked you way harder questions, and this is the one I get to you.